Annabelle Rhodes, a young woman raised in the gentler world of Boston, is journeying westward toward a marriage that promises comfort but not love. Her family arranged the match with a prosperous merchant in Santa Fe, believing it would provide her the stability they have struggled to maintain after years of financial strain. Annabelle agreed because she felt it was her duty, not because her heart desired a life beside a man she barely knew. As the stagecoach rattles across the desert, she tries to imagine her future. She tells herself she should feel grateful for safety and security, but her heart is restless. She imagines a life filled with passion, adventure, and meaning, though she has never dared to voice such dreams. The frontier around her is wild and immense, and for the first time she senses that the world is far larger than the narrow expectations she has always lived under. The day darkens suddenly. What begins as a gust of wind transforms into a violent dust storm sweeping across the trail. The horses rear and snort, their eyes rolling with fear. The driver fights the reins, shouting above the roar of the storm, but the world has already tipped into chaos. The wheels hit a buried rock or rut. Annabelle cannot tell, and the entire stagecoach lurches sideways. She barely has time to gasp before she is thrown violently against the wooden interior. The coach overturns and crashes down an embankment. When she comes to, the world is spinning, the air thick with dust. Her shoulder throbs with sharp pain. The driver does not respond when she calls his name, and the other passengers are nowhere in sight. She drags herself out of the wreckage, only to discover she is alone in a hard, merciless landscape. The wind has died, but the silence that follows is heavier than the storm itself. Her dress is torn. Her throat burns from dust, and she can barely stand. Each attempt to walk sends pain screaming through her leg. She stumbles, falls, crawls a few paces, then collapses again. The sun is ruthless, beating down with the promise of heat stroke. Annabelle realizes she may die here unmarried, unknown, forgotten by the world she left behind. Just when her vision begins to blur and she feels her strength slipping away, she sees movement in the distance. A human shape steps out of the wavering heat. For a moment, she cannot tell if it is a hallucination brought on by injury and fear. But the figure approaches with deliberate, controlled steps, not the uncertain wander of a mirage. This is Koa, a solitary Apache scout. He has spent years traveling between the worlds of settlers and his own people, belonging fully to neither. His life is marked by lost family taken by war, community fractured by distrust, and a lifetime spent in the quiet ache of loneliness. He scouts the borderlands because danger exists on both sides, and because it gives him a purpose when the rest of life no longer does. When Koa sees the wrecked stagecoach and the injured woman lying alone in the dust, he hesitates. Helping her could bring trouble. Soldiers might accuse him of harming her. Settlers might see him as a threat, and his own people might question his loyalty. Yet when he kneels beside her and hears her breathe a faint plea, something inside him shifts. She is terrified, weak, but determined to survive. He recognizes that spark. He has lived by it for years. Gently, he lifts her into his arms. Annabelle feels strength and steadiness in him, qualities she has never felt so sharply in anyone before. Her fear does not vanish, but it softens into trust. Koa carries her toward the shelter of his Heightened camp in the foothills, knowing full well that this single act might change the course of both their lives. After Koa carries Annabelle to his secluded cabin nestled among rocky foothills, he lays her gently on a simple bed of blankets and furs. The shelter is small but functional, crafted with care to withstand the harsh desert environment. Koa moves silently, checking the perimeter and adjusting traps around the area, ensuring that no wandering predator, human or animal, can approach unnoticed. Annabelle watches him, fascinated and terrified at the same time. Every gesture is purposeful, controlled, and foreign to her. She realizes quickly that she has entered a world completely unlike her own, a world where survival demands instinct. Silence and vigilance. Annabelle's body aches from the crash. But she is also wrestling with a deeper unease. She is a stranger in this place, and the man who saved her is both comforting and unknowable. His gaze is steady and penetrating, and she wonders what he sees when he looks at her. For the first time in her life, she feels the vulnerability of depending entirely on someone else. She has always been trained to manage her own safety, to maintain her composure, to control her circumstances. Now, she must surrender that control, at least temporarily. Koa tends to her wounds with practiced efficiency. He cleans the abrasions on her arms and shoulders, using water drawn from a nearby stream. His hands are steady and strong, and his touch is careful, but his eyes rarely meet hers. Every time she tries to engage him in conversation, he responds with few words, almost as if speaking too much could disrupt the fragile calm he maintains. He warns her quietly, "Stay here until you are strong enough." The desert is not forgiving. Annabelle nods, absorbing both the literal warning and the unspoken subtext. She cannot face the outside world alone. Not yet. As the hours pass, the two begin a slow and tentative understanding. Annabelle observes how Koa moves around the cabin, how he prepares food, sharpens tools, and tends to his few possessions. Each task is executed with quiet precision, and she starts to see that his silence is not coldness but a discipline born of necessity. In turn, Koa notices Annabelle's curiosity and resilience. Despite her delicate upbringing, she adapts quickly to the demands of the desert. She learns to carry water, gather firewood, and even help prepare simple meals. Though she struggles, she persists, and Koa's guarded demeanor begins to soften. The first evening together is marked by both tension and shared quiet. The wind rustles through the rocks outside, and the sun sets in brilliant shades of red and gold. Annabelle cannot help but feel small against the vastness of the landscape, yet strangely safe with Koa nearby. He sits by the fire, carving small wooden figures to pass the time, a habit he has practiced for years. Annabelle watches him, realizing that beneath the surface of stoicism lies a man who has lived with profound loneliness. For a brief moment their eyes meet, and she senses a flicker of curiosity in him as well. Neither speaks, but the silence is not uncomfortable. It is the beginning of trust. During the night, a sudden noise outside startles Annabelle. She trembles instinctively, but Koa is immediately alert, slipping outside to investigate. He returns quickly, calm but ready for danger, and Annabelle feels both relief and admiration. She begins to understand the full weight of his life, the constant vigilance, the solitude, the careful navigation between worlds that would never fully accept him. And in that realization, she also begins to see herself as more than a helpless victim. She is a companion in a fragile, shared existence. Annabelle and Koa have established the first threads of connection. She trusts him with her survival. He respects her courage and adaptability, and both sense that their meeting was no accident. The desert, vast and indifferent, has forced them together, and in this crucible, a bond begins to form, one that will be tested, challenged, and deepened in the days to come. The foundation of their story is laid, built on trust, survival, and the quiet understanding that fate has placed them together for reasons neither fully comprehends. Days pass in the remote desert, and Annabelle slowly regains strength under Koa's quiet supervision. Each morning, she wakes to the soft light of the desert sun spilling into the cabin, the scent of sagebrush on the wind, and the gentle rhythm of Koa moving about his home. He has become a presence both protective and enigmatic, guiding her recovery without demanding gratitude, yet teaching her the ways of the land she never imagined she could survive in. The desert is harsh, the air dry and unyielding, But Annabelle finds herself adapting to routines that would have terrified her in the city. She learns to gather water efficiently, tend small fires without smoke giving away their position, and notice the subtle cues of approaching wildlife or humans. Each skill Koa demonstrates feels like a small window into his world, and with each lesson, she feels a growing sense of respect for the life he has built in isolation. Yet even as trust builds, tension simmers beneath the surface. Koa is cautious to maintain boundaries, reminding her frequently that the world outside is dangerous and that any mistake could cost them both dearly. When he offers guidance, he does so in a measured voice, often pausing as if to gauge her reaction. Annabelle, on her part, struggles with feelings she cannot name, a mix of gratitude, admiration, fear, and something more tender that surprises her. She begins to notice the little things about him, the way his eyes scan the horizon constantly, the quiet strength of his hands, the subtle care with which he handles even the smallest tasks. She senses a loneliness in him that mirrors her own, though for different reasons, and this shared isolation creates an unspoken connection that neither of them acknowledges aloud. One afternoon, Koa takes Annabelle further from the cabin, guiding her along a narrow trail that winds through the rocky hills. The desert stretches in all directions, a vast expanse that seems both beautiful and indifferent. He tests her balance as they navigate the uneven terrain, offering a hand at critical moments, never letting her stumble. During the journey he speaks little, and when he does, it is always practical advice or observation. Yet each word carries weight, and Annabelle notices that his careful tone allows her to ask questions without fear of judgment. Their conversation is sparse but significant, each exchange deepening their understanding of one another's character and values. As the sun begins to sink toward the horizon, they reach a small natural spring, a rare gift in the arid landscape. Annabelle marvels at the sight, grateful for both the water and the momentary reprieve from their rigorous routines. Koa watches her quietly, sensing her relief and the subtle wonder in her expression. In that moment, he feels a pang of something he has long denied: affection, responsibility, and perhaps even a flicker of attachment. He reminds himself of the dangers inherent in forming bonds in this unforgiving land. Yet he cannot deny the sense of connection growing between them. That night, back at the cabin, a sudden noise outside, a coyote or perhaps a wandering band of humans, pulls them into immediate vigilance. Koa steps outside to investigate while Annabelle waits inside, her heart racing. He returns shortly, signaling that the threat has passed, but the incident leaves both of them acutely aware of the fragility of their situation. Annabelle realizes that her safety depends entirely on his vigilance and skills, and Koa is reminded of the weight of his responsibility in protecting someone so vulnerable yet so remarkably resilient. The bond between Koa and Annabelle has grown deeper, tempered by danger, necessity, and shared survival. The physical and emotional distance between them has narrowed slightly, yet each remains cautious, aware that the outside world could intervene at any moment. They are no longer strangers, but they are not yet companions fully united. The stage is set for the coming trials. As trust has been established, curiosity has grown into respect, and both begin to sense that fate has entwined their lives in ways neither fully understands. Life in the desert cabin has settled into a fragile routine. Annabelle has grown stronger, moving with more confidence along the rugged trails and performing tasks that once seemed impossible. Koa observes her quietly, noting her progress with a mixture of admiration and concern. While trust has grown between them, he remains cautious, aware that the world beyond their isolated refuge is filled with dangers that could shatter the fragile safety they have established. He warns her repeatedly about venturing too far alone and stresses the importance of vigilance. Yet even as he sets rules, he cannot entirely shield her from the lessons the desert demands. One morning, while Annabelle fetches water from a nearby stream, she notices tracks that are unfamiliar and too deliberate to be made by animals. Her pulse quickens, and she hurries back to the cabin to inform Koa. He studies the tracks with careful scrutiny, recognizing them as human-likely soldiers or hunters from the nearby settlements. He explains that rumors of a lost bride in the area could have reached local patrols or bounty hunters, putting them both in immediate danger. The news sharpens the tension between them, reminding Annabelle that the safety she has begun to feel is tenuous at best. Koa decides they must prepare. He reinforces traps and boundaries around the cabin and practices defensive maneuvers with Annabelle, teaching her how to move quietly, recognize potential threats, and respond without panic. Annabelle struggles at first, but she learns quickly, driven by the knowledge that her survival depends not only on his skill, but on her own ability to act. These shared lessons strengthen their connection. Each time she rises to a challenge, Koa offers a small nod of approval, a rare acknowledgement of her courage that carries profound meaning. Despite the tension, moments of intimacy develop in subtle ways. Annabelle begins to understand Koa's silence not as indifference, but as a careful control of emotions, shaped by years of isolation and vigilance. She observes the little things he does, the way he sharpens his knife with slow precision, the way he hums softly while carving wood, and the gentle way he ensures her injuries are properly treated. Koa, in turn, begins to notice Annabelle's resilience and resourcefulness. He sees her determination to adapt, not just survive, and it softens the edges of his solitude. As the day wears on, the threat outside grows more imminent. A distant noise, perhaps a scout or a rider, carries across the canyon. Annabelle and Koa exchange a glance that requires no words. He positions her behind a natural rock barrier and instructs her on how to stay silent while he investigates. The tension is palpable, each second stretching unbearably, and Annabelle feels a mix of fear and awe at Koa's composure under pressure. When he returns, the danger has passed for now, but the encounter serves as a stark reminder that their sanctuary is fragile. That night, as the desert sky glows with a tapestry of stars, Annabelle cannot sleep. She reflects on the sequence of events, the accident, the rescue, the growing trust, and the sudden intrusion of danger. She realizes that her feelings for Koa have deepened beyond gratitude. She admires his strength, respects his discipline, and feels an emerging warmth toward him that surprises her. Koa, lying awake nearby, senses her restlessness even without turning to look. Though he keeps his emotions closely guarded, he experiences a quiet recognition of his growing attachment to her. The story has shifted from recovery to survival and emotional awareness. The outside world intrudes, forcing both characters to confront the reality of the dangers surrounding them. Their trust in one another solidifies, yet the pressures of the desert and encroaching humans push them to new levels of awareness and cooperation. The stakes are higher, and the bond that has begun to form between Koa and Annabelle is tested by external threats and internal awakenings. Their journey is no longer only about surviving the wilderness, it is about navigating the fragile, complex terrain of trust, courage, and emerging affection under circumstances that could separate them at any moment. The morning dawns, crisp and silent over the desert hills, but the calm is deceptive. Koa notices fresh tracks around the cabin too precise and organized to be random travelers or wandering hunters. He studies the patterns, realizing that a patrol or small posse is searching the area, likely for Annabelle. Word of her disappearance and the rumors of her being with an Apache scout have reached nearby settlements. Koa knows that the soldiers or bounty hunters are relentless and that hesitation could be fatal. He warns Annabelle calmly, though the gravity of the situation is clear in his tone. "We may not have time to retreat if they come closer," he says, his voice low and steady. Annabel, now stronger and more confident than when she first arrived, feels a mix of fear and determination. She realizes that she can no longer remain passive. Her survival and Koa's depend on her awareness and cooperation. She listens closely, following his instructions to reinforce the perimeter and conceal the cabin as much as possible. Each action she takes, from moving supplies to setting improvised alarms, reflects her growing understanding of the desert and the man who protects her dot by mid-morning. The sound of horses and voices carries faintly through the canyon. Koa signals for silence, and he and Annabel take their positions. He crouches behind a rock, observing the approach, while Annabel hides nearby, her pulse racing but her breathing controlled. The threat is tangible now, not a rumor or tracks in the sand, but living men intent on finding them. Koa's eyes scan the area with practiced precision, every movement measured, every instinct honed by years of survival. He communicates with her in subtle gestures, guiding her without speaking, allowing her to act while maintaining control of the situation. When the patrol reaches the edge of the clearing, Koa steps from his hiding place, presenting a calm and authoritative presence that surprises both Annabel and the intruders. His strategy is not to attack immediately, but to project confidence and readiness, giving the illusion of a prepared defense. Annabel watches, her admiration for him deepening. She realizes that his strength is not just physical, but a combination of intelligence, patience, and an unwavering understanding of human behavior. The confrontation escalates when one of the intruders approaches too close to the cabin. Koa acts swiftly, using both warning shots and commanding gestures to deter them. Annabel, following his earlier instructions, quietly alerts him to another man moving along a secondary path, demonstrating her newfound awareness. Their coordinated efforts force the patrol to hesitate, reassessing the risk of pursuing them further. Eventually, recognizing the advantage Koa holds in the terrain and the impossibility of a quick capture, the intruders retreat, leaving Koa and Annabel alone once more. After the danger passes, the cabin is quiet except for the sound of the wind through the rocks. Annabel emerges from her hiding spot, and for the first time she speaks with raw honesty. She tells Koa that she feels a mixture of fear and exhilaration, that she has learned more about herself and about him than she expected. Koa, still alert but allowing himself a brief moment of calm, acknowledges her courage. "You did well," he says quietly, his voice carrying a rare warmth. "You are stronger than you know." That evening, as they sit by the fire, the weight of the day settles over them. They share a simple meal in silence, each lost in thought. Annabel feels a growing admiration for Koa, understanding that his life of solitude has made him both disciplined and deeply human. Koa, in turn, experiences a subtle shift in his perception of her. She is no longer simply a person he must protect, but a companion, whose presence enriches his otherwise lonely existence. The first direct confrontation has tested both Koa and Annabel in ways the desert alone could not. Their bond, forged through shared danger and coordinated effort, strengthens under pressure. They realize that survival is not merely about skills or instinct, but about trust, intuition, and the ability to rely on one another fully. This pivotal moment lays the foundation for deeper emotional connection, setting the stage for the challenges and revelations yet to come as the outside world continues to press in on their fragile sanctuary. The desert is quiet in the morning, but the events of the previous day linger in their minds. Annabel wakes before dawn, the image of armed men approaching the cabin still vivid in her memory. She moves quietly, careful not to disturb Koa, who is already preparing for the day. Though the immediate danger has passed, the sense of unease lingers. For the first time, Annabelle feels the full weight of the isolation she shares with Koa. The desert is unforgiving. And though she has grown stronger, she knows they are still vulnerable. Koa senses her unrest without her speaking. He offers guidance in the form of subtle gestures rather than words, helping her carry water and gather firewood, showing her how to move efficiently and cautiously. Their routine is unbroken, but beneath it lies an unspoken tension. Both are aware of their growing dependence on each other, yet neither is ready to confront the deeper feelings that have begun to stir. Koa, who has long relied on solitude as a shield, struggles with the unfamiliar intensity of concern and protectiveness he feels for Annabelle. Annabelle, in turn, is conflicted between gratitude, admiration, and the unexpected warmth of attachment that she cannot easily define. As the day progresses, Annabelle tries to practice the skills Koa has taught her. She attempts to navigate the rocky terrain, replicate his precise movements, and anticipate the subtle signs of danger in the landscape. Koa watches silently, occasionally correcting her stance or grip. Though she grows more confident, she also realizes how much she has to learn. The desert does not forgive mistakes, and Koa's presence reminds her constantly that her survival depends on both skill and vigilance. In the afternoon, a sudden gust of wind carries a faint scent of smoke. Koa immediately stiffens, signaling to Annabelle that something is wrong. He investigates cautiously, discovering that a small group of travelers or hunters has set up a camp several miles away. They have not yet detected the cabin, but the risk is immediate. Koa evaluates the situation with the experience of years spent navigating dangerous encounters. He knows that direct confrontation could be catastrophic, yet ignoring the threat could leave them vulnerable in the near future. Annabelle watches him work, her admiration deepening, but also her anxiety. She wants to contribute, but fears making a mistake that could cost them dearly. Koa senses her hesitation and offers reassurance in a way he has never done before. He steps closer, placing a steadying hand on her arm, and murmurs quietly that she has learned more than she realizes and that he trusts her judgment. The words strike her profoundly, breaking through the wall of fear she has built around herself. Later that evening, as the sun sets over the desert, Koa and Annabelle share a rare moment of conversation. For the first time, Koa speaks not about survival or practical matters, but about his past, how he lost his family, the reason he wanders between worlds, and the loneliness that has defined much of his life. Annabelle listens intently, offering empathy and gentle questions that encourage him to open further. This exchange creates a bond stronger than anything forged by shared danger alone. They begin to understand each other not just as protector and dependent, but as two humans with vulnerabilities, fears, and hopes. The night is quiet, and the stars stretch endlessly overhead. Annabelle reflects on the day's lessons, the necessity of courage, the power of trust, and the strange, growing warmth she feels toward Koa. Koa, lying nearby in the cabin, feels a mix of satisfaction and unease. Protecting her has become more than a duty, it has become personal. He is unaccustomed to such attachment, and he quietly wonders if this bond, however fragile, could survive the harsh realities that lie ahead. The story shifts from physical survival to emotional awareness. Koa and Annabelle are no longer only companions navigating the desert. They are individuals grappling with connection, trust, and emerging feelings. Their growing emotional intimacy adds depth to their partnership, while external threats continue to loom. This chapter sets the stage for challenges that will test not only their skills and resourcefulness but also the strength of the the bond that has begun to define their lives. Together, the desert grows hotter as the days pass, and the cabin, once a sanctuary, begins to feel increasingly exposed. Koa has noticed signs of tracking, again subtle disturbances in the sand, distant hoofbeats and glimmers of movement along the ridges. He knows they are being watched, and the inevitability of confrontation is pressing closer. Annabelle, more capable now than ever, helps him reinforce the cabin, set traps, and watch the horizon for signs of approaching danger. Their movements are synchronized, and a quiet rhythm develops between them, built on shared trust, mutual dependence, and unspoken understanding. Despite the practical preparations, the tension between them grows more intimate and complicated. Annabelle feels a strong pull toward Koa, a mixture of admiration, gratitude, and curiosity about the man behind the stoic exterior. She notices how his eyes track her movements, how his protective instincts surface even in small gestures, and how his calm presence grounds her in the midst of uncertainty. Koa, for his part, becomes acutely aware of his emotional response to her proximity. He has lived a life defined by solitude and self-reliance, and yet he finds himself unsettled by the warmth and humanity she brings into his world. Their bond is no longer purely about survival. It carries a quiet, unspoken intimacy that neither is fully prepared to address. The tension reaches a critical point. One afternoon, when Koa and Annabelle spot a small group of riders in the distance, the men are clearly searching for someone likely for Annabelle and are moving with deliberate caution. Koa immediately signals for silence and instructs Annabelle to remain hidden. As they watch the group navigate the terrain, both understand that a direct confrontation is now unavoidable. Koa formulates a plan, explaining carefully how they will use the landscape to their advantage: the rocks for cover, the canyon ridges for observation, and subtle traps to create obstacles. Annabelle listens attentively, her heart pounding, aware that the moment for real action has arrived. As evening approaches, the riders move closer, unaware of the cabin's concealed location. Koa positions Annabelle strategically and reminds her to stay calm and follow his cues. The night air is charged with tension, and the desert becomes a stage where survival and skill will determine the outcome. The intruders are cautious, but Koa's experience gives him a decisive advantage. He guides Annabelle silently, and when the first intruder comes too close, he acts swiftly to create a diversion, allowing her to take cover safely. Their combined vigilance and cooperation frustrate the intruders, forcing them to retreat once again. After the encounter, the adrenaline slowly fades, leaving both Koa and Annabelle exhausted yet exhilarated. The danger has strengthened their bond, creating a shared sense of triumph and relief. They sit by the fire in silence, each processing the events of the day. Annabelle finally allows herself to voice a small confession. She admires Koa not just for his skill but for his quiet strength and the integrity with which he faces every challenge. Koa, hearing her words, feels a mixture of vulnerability and longing. He is unaccustomed to such openness, and for a moment, the careful walls he has built around himself begin to crack. As the night deepens, the stars stretching endlessly overhead, the two sit in a companionable quiet, their thoughts intertwined. They have survived danger together, adapted to the harshness of the desert, and begun to explore the fragile emotional terrain between them. Annabelle recognizes the depth of her feelings, and Koa feels the stirrings of attachment he cannot ignore. Yet both know that external threats remain, and that the trials to come will test not only their survival skills, but also the strength of the bond they have forged. The story has evolved into a delicate balance of action, danger, and emotion. The outside world presses ever closer, while the intimacy and trust between Koa and Annabelle deepen. The desert has become a crucible, revealing both the fragility and resilience of human connection. Their partnership is no longer just about survival, it is about reliance, understanding, and the unspoken promise that each will stand by the other. When the world grows threatening and unforgiving, the desert feels heavier that morning. The sun burning brighter and the wind carrying faint echoes of distant movement. Koa notices subtle signs, trampled brush, hoof prints, and a faint glimmer of metal that the small group of riders is returning, more determined and organized than before. They have likely learned from their earlier failures and are approaching with strategy and intent. The cabin, once a refuge, now feels exposed, vulnerable to anyone who can find it. Koa knows that this time there will be no easy retreat. They must confront the danger head-on if they hope to survive. He explains the situation to Annabelle in calm, measured tones, detailing their options: stay hidden and hope the intruders leave, or use the terrain to set a trap and protect themselves. Annabelle, now stronger, more aware, and attuned to Koa's methods, offers her perspective. She suggests they create diversions and manipulate the landscape to confuse their pursuers. Her confidence surprises Koa, who has watched her grow from a frightened, fragile woman into someone capable of thinking strategically and acting decisively. Together, they refine a plan that relies on both of their strengths: Koa's experience and survival instincts, and Annabelle's intuition and resourcefulness. As the day stretches on, the riders approach the clearing. Koa signals for Annabelle to stay low while he moves forward to assess the situation. Every rock and ridge becomes a tactical advantage. Every shadow could conceal danger. Annabelle watches his movements carefully, ready to act at the precise moment he indicates. When the first intruder steps too close, Koa's warning is silent but unmistakable, and Annabelle executes her role perfectly, creating a distraction that forces the intruders to hesitate. The desert becomes a chessboard, and they move as a seamless team, coordinating without words, relying on trust, skill, and instinct. The confrontation intensifies as one of the riders attempts to flank the cabin, forcing Koa and Annabelle to respond immediately. Koa acts decisively, using the terrain to channel the intruder away, while Annabelle applies what she has learned: careful movements, keen observation, and timing honed by fear and necessity. For the first time, Annabelle experiences the thrill of true agency in this harsh environment. She is no longer just protected, but an active participant in their survival. Koa notices the determination in her eyes, and a subtle pride mingles with his concern. He realizes that she is no longer merely a responsibility but a partner, someone whose courage and intelligence enhance his own capabilities. After hours of tense maneuvering, the intruders retreat, recognizing that their prey is not only prepared but formidable. Koa and Annabelle watch them disappear over the horizon, their relief palpable but mixed with exhaustion and awareness that danger is never far behind. The encounter leaves them physically drained but emotionally transformed. They have survived together, relying on trust, coordination, and mutual respect, and the bond between them deepens as a result. That evening, under a canopy of stars, the weight of the day settles over the cabin. Annabelle allows herself to speak openly about the fear and adrenaline she experienced, and Koa, for the first time, shares a fragment of the emotion he usually keeps buried: relief, pride, and a strange tenderness for the woman who has become indispensable to him. The conversation is quiet but significant. It signals a shift in their relationship, moving from survival partners to companions whose hearts are entwined by shared danger and growing affection. The stakes have been raised both externally and internally. The desert has proven that danger is constant, but it has also revealed the depth of trust and emotional connection between Koa and Annabelle. They are no longer merely teacher and pupil, protector and dependent. They are partners, bonded by experience, courage, and an unspoken understanding that their survival and perhaps their future depends on their unity. The story now moves toward the challenges that will test not only their skills, but the strength of the love that has quietly begun to take root. The morning after the retreat of the intruders is unusually quiet. The desert stretches endlessly, the sun climbing high in the sky, and the air seems heavier than usual, as if the land itself is aware of what has passed. Koa moved through their small camp with careful attention, inspecting the cabin and surrounding terrain for any signs of lingering danger. Annabelle, now adept at reading the desert, joins him in the routine. Their silence is comfortable yet charged, the kind of unspoken communication that has developed between people who have endured life-threatening events together. Both are acutely aware that each moment of peace may be temporary. Koa senses that the intruders will not forget this encounter. They may regroup, seek reinforcements, or try to discover their location again. He begins to plan contingencies, considering escape routes, hidden paths, and traps that could protect them. Annabelle watches him, recognizing both the weight of responsibility he bears and the skill with which he navigates the dangers of the land. She feels a mixture of admiration and concern, realizing that their survival has become a shared burden, one that relies not only on strength and skill but also on trust and coordination. As the day progresses, Annabelle begins to confront her own feelings more directly. The experiences of the past days, being rescued, learning to survive, facing danger side by side, have created a bond she cannot ignore. She admires Koa's strength, intelligence, and unwavering calm under pressure. But more than that, she feels drawn to him in a way that surprises her. There is a tenderness in his actions, a quiet care that contrasts with the harshness of the desert. And she realizes that she has begun to depend on him emotionally as well as physically. Koa, for his part, becomes aware of a growing attachment he has long resisted. His life of solitude has taught him to suppress emotions, to trust only his own instincts, and to avoid connections that could lead to vulnerability. Yet Annabelle has changed something fundamental in him. Her courage, adaptability, and unexpected warmth have stirred feelings he cannot fully name. He finds himself watching her in moments of quiet reflection, noticing the way her eyes light up when she discovers something new in the desert, or how her hands move confidently as she carries out tasks he once thought impossible for a newcomer. The turning point comes when Koa discovers a subtle but significant sign. One of the intruders' tracks leads closer to the cabin than expected, suggesting that a reconnaissance party may have returned under the cover of night. Koa and Annabelle realize that their time in the cabin may be running out. They must decide whether to stand their ground and defend themselves or retreat deeper into the wilderness. The choice is fraught with risk. Staying could lead to another confrontation, but fleeing could expose them to unknown dangers and separate them from the fragile home they have begun to build together. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Koa admits his concern for Annabelle's safety in a way he rarely voices aloud. He confesses that the thought of losing her, of failing to protect her, disturbs him in a manner he has not felt for anyone before. Annabelle responds with her own honesty, acknowledging the fear she has felt and the trust she places in him. The exchange deepens their connection, solidifying the emotional foundation that has been growing throughout their shared experiences. The story reaches a pivotal moment. The external threat is imminent, and the choices they make will shape not only their survival but their future together. Their relationship has evolved from one of dependence and protection to one of mutual respect, trust, and emotional intimacy. The desert has tested them, forced them to confront fear and danger, and revealed the depth of their bond. The stage is set for the climax, where action, emotion, and fate converge, challenging both Koa and Annabelle to face the ultimate trial together. The desert dawn is ablaze with color, but the beauty of the sunrise contrasts sharply with the danger looming nearby. Koa and Annabelle are alert, every sense sharpened by the events of the past days. The reconnaissance tracks discovered the previous evening indicate that a larger, More organized party of intruders is moving closer. They are not alone this time, and the possibility of violence hangs heavily over the small cabin. Koa's strategy is precise. They will use the terrain, the hidden ridges, and clever diversions to protect themselves. Annabelle, now confident and capable, is an active partner, executing the plan with courage and skill. The confrontation begins in the late morning. Riders appear on the horizon, advancing with intent. Koa and Annabelle take their positions, moving silently and efficiently. The first wave of intruders is distracted by traps and natural obstacles, giving Koa and Annabelle an advantage. Koa coordinates their movements with subtle gestures, allowing Annabelle to participate actively, demonstrating the trust he has placed in her. Her confidence and composure in the face of danger impress him deeply, confirming that she is no longer merely someone he protects but a true companion. The intruders attempt to flank them, testing their defenses. Koa responds decisively, using his knowledge of the land to guide Annabelle and create barriers while avoiding unnecessary violence. Annabelle proves her adaptability, anticipating the intruders' movements and providing timely warnings and assistance. The battle of wits and skill culminates in a tense standoff, with the intruders realizing that their quarry is prepared and resourceful. One by one, they retreat, acknowledging the futility of continuing the pursuit. After the threat is neutralized, Koa and Annabelle survey the cabin and surrounding area. The adrenaline begins to fade, replaced by exhaustion and relief. They sit together near the fire, a quiet intimacy settling over them. Annabelle, her voice steady, expresses gratitude for Koa's courage and skill, but also for the trust he has placed in her. Koa responds with rare openness, admitting that her presence has changed him and that he has grown attached in ways he cannot fully articulate. It is a moment of vulnerability that neither had allowed themselves before, and it strengthens the bond that has developed over their shared experiences. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desert, Annabelle and Koa discuss their future. The wilderness has taught them lessons about resilience, trust, and the delicate balance between caution and courage. They realize that staying in isolation is no longer viable. The desert can be harsh and unpredictable, and human threats are never far away. Together, they decide to leave the cabin and journey deeper into the frontier. Not merely as survivor and protector, but as companions united by choice and affection. The emotional climax comes in a quiet moment under the stars. Koa, who has long kept his feelings guarded, finally allows himself to express his emotions. He tells Annabelle that her courage, compassion, and presence have changed the way he views the world. Annabelle, in turn, acknowledges the respect, trust, and deep affection she feels for him. Their shared hardships, survival, and mutual care have transformed into love, not born of circumstance alone but of understanding, trust, and devotion forged under extreme conditions. The story resolves with a sense of both triumph and hope. Koa and Annabelle have survived the dangers of the desert, outwitted intruders, and discovered profound emotional connection in the process. They leave the cabin not as a man and woman bound by chance, but as two individuals who have chosen each other in defiance of the challenges around them. The desert, once a place of isolation and danger, has become the crucible in which their love, trust, and resilience were forged. The story closes on the horizon ahead, vast, uncertain, but filled with possibility, symbolizing the journey they will face together.